Oh, perfect then. All right. So with that being said, man, we got to talk Julio. Don't you just love how that just popped up like that, right? Oh. We've been talking, but we haven't been talking what we came here to talk about because we don't need to talk what we talk about. We talk about what y'all want to talk about until y'all don't have anything to talk about. And then we come up with our own topics. Preparation. That's what we do.
Absolutely.
But surrounding Julio and what people are talking about, because obviously people might not have heard what had happened or why Julio and the Steelers became linked. Chase Claypool, he had not even a full interview. It was more so like a interaction with TMZ Sports. You know how TMZ, they'll run up on you wherever, whenever, however, with whoever. They don't care. And they simply asked him something like, yo, would you want Julio Jones? Would you like him? And he was like, man, I would love him here in Pittsburgh or something along. It was very simple.
Then he said, your receiving core stacked. He's like, hey, you can't have too many receivers.
Did he say too many superstars, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, he said you can't have too many superstars. And yeah, obviously that got Steeler Nation going. Julio. So we had to look into it. He's like, well, first off, before we even got into financially, could it work? I was like, just the basic premise of, would you want Julio in Pittsburgh? I think we should just start with that. Would we want Julio in Pittsburgh? We're not talking money. We're not talking fit. We're just simply the basic premise of, would you?
You would have to trade probably a second or first round pick.
They said they wanted a first rounder.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the financials. I just said that, right? We'll get to the financials later because that changes things, right? We're talking about the simple, basic premise of yes or no. Do you want Julio for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And this is for y'all in the comments as well. Simple yes or no. Not elaborate, just yes or no if you want him. Because that will let us know, first off, just the overall interest, right? Because if everybody's like, well, nah, I don't want him. I don't want him. You don't want him. Then it's like, why are we even going to waste time on it, right? But if people do think about him like that, that changes things. Changes things a little bit, man.
It's interesting because it's yes and no. One, it's not. There's no shot in how this is happening. There's no shot.
See, you're going too far. We're not even there yet. How are you going to talk money? How are you going to talk no shot when we're not even talking if you want him or not?
There's too many factors.
No. You're trying to protect your heart. You know what you sound like? You sound like that dude who sees the hot chick and you're like, bro, she is so bad. You know what? I really don't think I'm going to get her. She probably ain't gonna like me. So now you start saying this. Well, man, she probably eat too much. Man, she probably costs too much anyways. She don't even hang out on this side of town. Man, I ain't worried about her. I don't even like girls for real. Like, that's where you going right now. Like, you give me all these other things about Julio. No, just simply, do you want Julio? Yes or no? That's simple. Julio Jones, would you want him on your roster? Yes or no?
It's nuanced.
It's a simple yes or no.
It's nuanced in my opinion because
oh my God.
Part of me is just like, we don't need him. We don't need him.
Gosh.
We got Claypool, we got Deontay, we got Juju.
Are any of those guys Julio Jones or close to Julio?
They're
yes
not,
no?
But then that's the thing. Then we would have to maybe trade one of them.
We didn't say that. We didn't say any of that. We just simply said, would you want Julio? Yes or no? It's that simple. If you don't want him, just say you don't want him. You don't have to want him.
It's tough because I would like him.
No. You clearly do. You over here going through this like great debate in your head of do I want Julio or not? Like, are we serious? That's like, do you want 7 as your quarterback? Just yes or no. We don't have to go through all these other things. It's just yes or no.
32 years old.
Think about this, right? If we were to talk about, do you want Ben back? Well, that means you got to lose Bud Dupree. That means you got to lose this guy. That changes the conversation. But the simple thing was, do you want Ben back? Yes. All right, cool. Go from there. So do you want Julio? Yes or no?
That's the thing. I still think he's got it.
So is it yes or no, man?
I can't give that answer because...
Why can't you? It's a simple, like, we're going to get to the other conversations, right? Because it's nuanced. It is. But how are you going to dive into the 5th layer of a conversation without going through the first layer? The first basic premise of the Julio to Pittsburgh conversation is, do you want him? Because if you don't want him, then there is no even purpose of an exercise of mentally going on there. But if you did want him, then it's like, wow, okay. What would it cost? All right. That's what it would cost. Could it fit? Okay. It could fit. All right. Well, why would Chase and other guys want him here? All right, cool. Then lastly, do we think it happens? You see, it's nuance, it's layered. But to just hop into, whoa, I don't know, man. No, man, we ain't there just yet. You on level 3. We on level 1 right now, man. Come on, baby.
Yeah, I'd like to have Julio.
Thank you.
Sure.
Was that hard?
It was, dude. I'm telling you, it was.
Not really that hard, man.
I'm telling you, it was. But yeah,
but why was it that hard though? Why is it just hard to say he's a great player, a future Hall of Famer? He would be the best wide receiver on our team in 2021. Yes, Arthur Most would want Julio Jones. Now we're gonna get to the next part of it, right? Because it's layers, it's nuance, and that's what makes it different. But the first part was just, did we want him? And now let me see who else. If anyone else, yes, we do. We don't need him. I know we're not talking need. We're just saying, do you want him or not? Do you want him? Sorogi says, yes, we do want him. All right, let's see who else is in here. Yes or no's? Because I thought I saw a no in here. Yeah, I just see people saying where other locations he could potentially go to. Here we go. Quincy says yes. Khalil. I don't know how you say that name. Kalil. Khalil says no. Luke Walker, obviously. Gyro says yes. A lot of course, no. Oh, okay. We got some no's. We got a heck yeah. Shout out to Tavion Chancellor. Then we got Quincy says yes. I mean, it's a good amount of yes. But then Moneybags, he's part of the upper room. He says no. But then Call Me K is part of the upper room, and Call Me K says yes.
So we got this is one of the things I was thinking. I'm sure we'll talk about this. This is by PB43YT. Thank you for your contribution. Julio would slow the progression of Chase and Deontay. So that was one of the things I was thinking of. But if you're just telling me we could add Julio Jones, we don't got to worry about anything else, sure. I mean, it's not going to hurt us for 2021.
It's a nuanced conversation.
Exactly.
The first part of the conversation, before you jump the gun, I see you jumping the gun. It's cool. You and PB43Y2, shout out to you as well, but y'all jumped the gun. It's cool. The first part was, do you want him? The second part is, why would Chase want him? Because remember, Chase was don't talk to me about slow progression. Either one of y'all, when Chase was the one who said, I would love him here in Pittsburgh. So trust me, Chase isn't worried about slow progression. In fact, if you're chasing Deontay, you would want Julio because number one, it's going to open up the offense for you that much more. Coverage standpoint wise, Julio is going to draw coverage that Chase hasn't drawn and that Deontay hasn't drawn. Julio, what he's going to do from an attention standpoint means instant one-on-ones Deontay, instant one-on-ones Chase, instant one-on-ones Juju. That is filthy right there. And in terms of asking price, we've seen that the Falcons wanted a first rounder for him, right? That's what they first had started out because contract-wise is different. He has 3 years remaining, but this is the last year of the guarantee money. It's going to be at 15.3, I think it is, for that price. Then after that, 11 the following 2 years, but none of that money is guaranteed. All right. So very, very, you can make that happen if you wanted to. That's all I'm saying. If they really wanted to, they could, but we're not to the money yet. Getting back to Chase. Chase wants him here because Chase understands that we love Juju, but Juju doesn't draw the coverage that Julio draws. We love Deontay. We think he's going to grow into a star. He's not drawing the coverage that Julio is drawing right now. Chase understands that if Julio is here, Chase numbers are going to go crazy. Deontay's numbers are going to go crazy. It's that simple.
Here's my question.
No, you ready for this?
Go ahead.
Prime example. Ask Juju how much he benefited having AB across from him versus when it was no longer AB across from him.
Sure.
The proof is in the pudding. That part is there. So that's why I think it would make sense for Chase to want him here. That's my thing.
I just thought he was joking, dude. I did. I thought he was just talking tongue in cheek.
It's cool, man.
So you thought he was dead serious? Like,
why wouldn't you want him though? I don't think he's not saying get us Julio, because there's a difference between get us and would you want him. That's why I asked the question. Why I asked it. They just simply said, would you want him? Yes, I would love him in Pittsburgh. You could never have enough superstars. That is a absolute direct fact. Different conversation of, hey, should we go trade for him? Should we go out there and get him? Like I said, it's nuanced though. We're going to get to that part next. We getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? We're building to it. We're building to it.
I got you.
We're just breaking down the different layers of it because a lot of people, they instantly hear, oh, Julio, heck no, it wouldn't work. Well, why wouldn't it work? Oh, the money. That's not true. Oh, it wouldn't fit. That's not true. So it's like, don't just give the cookie cutter dough because of, oh, it's the steal away, because we've seen that's changed as well, right? Minka Fitzpatrick, Devin Bush. We can go down the list of different things that they've done. So that's the part where it's like, yo, let's just spend a little time with it. That's all.
Sure. What's the next step in the progression?
So the next step is now we're talking the numbers, right? What would it cost? So if you're trading a first round pick, are you having to give up a player with that, right? What does that look like? That's my thing, because from what I've seen, they want draft picks. You've been bringing up players though.
No. So I don't think we'd have to trade anyone. It's either we trade like a first or second round pick.
Correct.
Maybe it's a second or third, second or fourth, as opposed to the first. So there's that. But then bringing him in, does it slow that progression of Juju? Maybe not Juju. Maybe Deontay.
Juju's who Juju is.
Yeah, Deontay, Claypool.
Deontay low key who Deontay is. Deontay's got to catch.
How does that look?
Think about this. How do we use Deontay? We use him around the line of scrimmage, right? Every once in a while we'll take a shot deep, but he's really get the ball in his hands early, let him make
Slants,
guys miss.
Drag routes.
Right. That doesn't affect Julio. What does Juju do? Juju works out of the slot predominantly. Now, I know Juju said that he wants to get back on the outside. Obviously, there's more money on the outside, but right now, he's a slot receiver. That doesn't affect Julio. Chase, he's affected by Julio because their games are probably the most similar, but Chase at this point benefits way more from Julio than he's hurt by Julio at this point in his career.
That's what I was wondering. Do we think Claypool takes that DK Metcalf step next year where he's the one drawing the attention? He becomes that bona fide star. If we bring in Julio, does that hinder it? But from what you're saying, it should really only help it in a way.
I don't,
especially too if Julio, he's 32 right now. What if he's on the roster for another year or two? Claypool would still be at 24, 25, and he could grow into his own at that point.
Exactly. And what veteran receiver can Chase go to that can coach him up on Julio type stuff? Like Juju can talk to him about work ethic, handling the limelight and things like that, but Juju was never in a Julio conversation. Like in terms of just the way that he can play the game and just change it at a moment, like just big play, just everything Julio has been a top 3 receiver pretty much his whole career. So that's where we're getting at. So it's like to have a guy like that, that's invaluable. Like it's going to be constant growth. Just think about when you're watching how Julio runs his routes compared to how Juju runs his routes. 2 totally different players. Chase can't look at Juju running that route and say, oh, okay, that's how I'm going to do this thing. That's how it's going to work for me. Like, nah. He's more in line with a guy like Julio.
That's a really good point then.
That's what I'm saying, man.
How you think then just by trading a first, second round pick, we could make the numbers work for this season? You
could. Yes, you could.
Or do we have to trade a player with it?
I don't think you have to trade a player with it. Now, I think that you would probably release somebody. You probably, whether it's a James Washington or somebody at that bottom, because you're just going to have too many pieces in there. That part you might see somebody get moved on. But as a whole, if they wanted to make the numbers work, they could. Now, there will be ramifications in terms of years going forward.
You wouldn't bring back Juju probably next year.
But that type of stuff.
If you have Julio, Claypool, and Deontay,
okay,
that's
now you see
pretty solid.
So now you see what I'm saying. Okay.
But I think then I'd probably rather have Julio at 33 than Juju at what? Okay. What would he be, 25 at the time?
Okay.
And now I know Julio had a down year last season, but I think that was a lot more to injuries.
Yeah.
I still think he could play at a high level for the next 2 or 3.
Okay.
So this is what we're doing then. I you know what, man?
But you see, this is exactly why at the beginning, why I was so
I'm glad
about you like starting at that part, because it's so easy every time people come up, especially like free agent stuff like this. And we joke about other people that, oh man, they constantly get that guy. And it doesn't really make sense, or it's not a connection, or it just doesn't fit. It's like this, it could work. Everything could make sense with this thing. Now, the last part of it though, and this is, I guess, the part where I, put my foot down, make my little stance here. The what we want them part. Not the what we want them, but do we think it should happen or will it happen? Now, the biggest reason why I don't want it to happen is if we're going to allocate resources, whether it's a first round draft pick, whether it's money, I would want it to go to a position of need, not more of a necessity or a luxury piece, right? Because at the wide receiver room, we're stacked out there. So to bring in Julio, does Julio coming here add more wins to our offense, make them better? Like, is he a great receiver? Sure, but we already have a ton of talent out there, right? It'll be fun as hell. Compared to, like, for me, I've already said this obviously with Morgan, right? I would much rather us, if we were going to make a move on anybody, I would rather we get an O-lineman, right? A legit tackle, whether it's right or left, preferably right since Morgan is available. And then I already told you we would move Bannon and have that 3-man competition at left tackle. That to me is what, if we were going to do anything, because I don't think the Steelers are going to do either of those guys right now, honestly, which makes me scratch my head because I'm like, you definitely should do the Morgan one. But
yeah, he's still available.
Yeah, he's still available. So that's the part for me where I'm just like, I don't feel like you should spend that type of money, draft or cash, on a position like that where it's like you said, our wide receiver group, find a better group, like where it's clear cut, no debate. Like, yo, top to bottom, they're better. Not they have stars, because we talked about the conversation of stars versus a good group. Like, we feel like the Browns have the star power with Odell and Jarvis, but we feel like our group as a whole is better. We could say the same about Cincinnati and so forth. So that's the part where I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to spend that in the wide receiver room, man. Let's upgrade somewhere else, baby.
Yeah, if it's a first or second round pick too. Who knows what we're looking at in next year's draft too? Is it that we finally get that inside linebacker to pair up with Devin Bush, a bona fide edge rusher or something like that? Whereas even if we do lose Juju, whether he comes back or not, you see how easy it is for us to replace these receivers, man. We've done really good at that. Now, I don't know if our mindset changes because Ben's at the late stages of his career with that type of stuff, because a lot of people will say like, hey, we've had Ben for this long, so that's why we've had so many good receivers. But yeah, so I think that's in play too, and I think that's a good point because Julio, man, I mean, he's still going to be really good. He's still going to be like a top 10, 15 receiver, even at, 32, all the way up to like 34, 35.
And this is, I'm glad somebody brought this up right here. Brandon Minnick says Julio could bring those old Plax vibes. I feel like Julio, when he when he continues to age and get older, that's what he will fall to. He will become just the Plaxico type. You can throw it up to him. You know, he's a red zone. You know, he'll be a threat in the red zone, stuff like that. If that's what he's going to fall to, that's still really, really good. That's still a lot of productivity. We know what Plax is. I mean, shout out to Plax. He's from the crib. You know how I feel about Plax. But when I think of that, I'm like, that's what Julio ages to. And if that's what he's aging to, that's still daggone good, man.
And maybe at that point, maybe in 2 or 3 years, maybe the salary will be a little bit more than what we already
said. It's supposed to have the big boost next year. We talked about that. Whereas,
you're right.
Was it 60, 65 plus an additional cap space and things like that? That's why I said financially, if they wanted to make it work, they legitimately could. That's the thing. They could. But to me, I just feel like it's overkill for the wide receiver room. Like, you got too many guys in there right now.
So the hindering of Claypool, hindering of Deontay isn't the concern.
Correct. They wouldn't be hindered. They're going to grow. And think about this, right? A guy like Deontay, we love what he brings from a potential standpoint. But the consistency element, right? That's what he's going to need. Who better to talk about consistency than Julio Jones? Julio's been is light years ahead of the consistency compared to Juju, right? And the reason I bring up Juju is not as a slight, but he's the veteran. He's the oldest guy in the room. So that's the guy that they got to ask. You know what I mean? Like, they're
maybe not the oldest guy, but most years in the league.
The most years, right? So they're looking to him. So it's like, just think about when you're asking Juju about these type of things, being the man by yourself, consistent, things like that. He hasn't experienced that just yet. He hasn't proven that he could be the guy alone. Julio's been doing this for a decade. Julio could talk to Deontay about consistency. Julio could talk to Juju about handling the media even. Julio could talk to Chase Claypool about how to run routes and do certain things as a bigger guy getting in and out of his breaks.
You want to talk about media
Come on, man.
Staying low key.
What have we, outside of the phone call with Shannon?
Him and Fitzgerald, man.
We never hear anything, bro.
Never. I mean,
yeah, man.
Those are all good points. It was a good mental exercise. I enjoyed doing that.
It's a little fun, man.
I enjoyed doing that.
Little morning workout, man. And Kenneth Beamer says, hit the like button, by the way. Just shout out to Kenneth for that. But a lot of people, man, I feel like some people are liking, they're liking the Julio thing, man.
I think you swayed us. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points.
I did see somebody say only Moats could make this make sense.
Seriously.
It's just, when I think of just the inner workings of why it could work or why it could not work, that's kind of how I take that approach. Like, instead of just the simple, it's the Steelers, they're not going to do it. No, it's like, man, it's reasons why they could do it legitimately and why they might. But this is why they probably shouldn't. But this is why, for me, I'm like, Morgan, if we're thinking any movement, which they probably will be thinking, and obviously we talk about free agency and stuff like that, right? We say you have the free agency period before the draft. Then you're going to have that free agency period after OTAs going into training camp. And typically this is when you'll probably see a guy like Morgan or Julio have movement, because some teams are going to want those guys in for OTAs, right? And OTAs are significant. But for veteran players, football is football. So no matter how complex you want to word it, no matter how cool you put the cover of the playbook, it's football. It's a puzzle. 11 on offense, 11 on defense. You could word it whatever you want to word it. We can figure it out. The veteran guys are like that. So it's not as pressing for them to be there for OTAs. So once you get a chance to see these younger guys practice, all right, how confident are you with this guy? How confident are that guy? Now that's when we could see some more movement, especially by the Steelers, if they aren't as satisfied with the O-line at the end of OTAs. Say Banner, his recovery is going well, but they don't feel like, hey, man, we want to bring in a little bit more insurance. You could see that type of thing happening then. So it still is hope. Still is hope.
So basically with Julio, the concerns about hindering receivers' growth.
Yeah. Don't worry about those.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of future resources,
that's the part.
Salary cap space.
That's the part. Think about this, right? If we're talking about money that could be going to, and I know you're not going to like this, but say Ben were to hang it up, right? He wins the Lombardi, MVP, Super Bowl MVP, goes out, blaze of glory, smokes a cigar with you. Y'all got the backwoods with the backwood getting it in. You know what I mean? And he goes up to the sunset. I would much rather us have the full deck of cards to go out there to replace him, whether it's draft or open market free agency, than us having money from Julio, you know, that we're tied up in right now, because we wanted him in 2021 because we're trying to do it all now, but now it's got a little, you know, got some crumbs over in 2022. I don't want to deal with that when we could potentially be looking at having to replace the franchise quarterback. That is the other part for me where I'm like, I don't want to tie up any money that we don't have to tie up going forward.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Juju's deal was 1 year.
Yeah.
Whereas Julio's would all of a sudden become 2-3. And like you said, it wasn't fully guaranteed. But
right.
if you
This is his last year of the guaranteed money.
There's going to be some dead cap with that then too.
Mm-hmm. So that's the part where I'm just like, knowing big picture what we have in store, whether it's next year, whether it's the year after that, I don't want a lot of bills due during that time. Because what if it's a situation where we think about the Rams, where they're like, yo, we're not worried about drafting a guy. We're going to try to trade for this guy. We know he has a crazy contract, but we feel like Stafford makes us better. What if it's a situation like that? We're like, yo, this guy makes us better. We don't want to deal with the draft. Let's put our resources, put our eggs in this basket and make that move. We want to have all the resources. That's what I'm saying.
Or if you just want to stack the defense, maybe.
Yeah, even that.
You draft the receiver in the second round. Juju's gone. You still have Claypool, Deontay.
Yeah.
This rookie receiver, maybe James Washington's gone too. But then you have Freiermuth, Harris. Yeah. Offensive line's improving. Maybe you just want to stack the defense.
Seriously.
And like you said, quarterback, I don't know what they would do, draft or bring in a free agent or something like that. But maybe just right there, that would be enough to be competitive, as opposed to if we have Julio, maybe that hinders us from getting an edge rusher, maybe an extra cornerback, which would be, like you said, more of the position of need. Whereas
absolutely,
receiver's probably going to be luxury for us in the next, 2, 3, 4 years.
Right. If I'm thinking in 2021, going into the season, the two positions that I want to upgrade, I'm thinking O-line, I'm thinking corner. If we're still making moves, I'm not worried about wide receiver though. Wide receiver, you can make the case that's the strongest position group on the team right now, realistically, because the secondary, we have holes at the corner spots. We have holes behind Edmonds and Minka. It's not a lot of depth behind those guys. Yeah. Whereas with that wide receiver room, top to bottom, our weakest wide receiver is Ray McLeod, who was a dog as a returner. Think about that. Like that's
he's our fifth guy.
Our fourth receiver led the team in receiving in 2019. James Washington. Think about that.
Forgot about that.
He's the fourth receiver.
He had over 700 yards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
with
your
Mason. Yeah.
That's your fourth receiver. And realistically, if we're talking about the hierarchy of targets, he's probably top 6 at best, because you're going to throw to Ebron and Najee before you make James Washington a feature. I'm like, dude, we are stacked. That's a ton of depth. We ain't even talk Pat. I love Pat. Project Pat, Patty Pat, Shiesty Pat.